Hello, my name is Aidan Eichman, and I've been working with Hanna Hunde and our mentor, Marcella Guarahan, on the Let's Use Data online learning system for the Code Labs internship. So the problem that I looked into was feedback for interactive coding problems. So take, for instance, the missing number problem, which is a pretty well-known problem. You have an array of numbers 1 through n, and you have to figure out which number 1 through n is missing, and then output it or return it. So here are 3 different examples of possible solutions that could be written by different people. This is specifically in C#. So you can see that there are a multitude of different ways to approach this problem and different solutions, and there's not necessarily one compact solution. However, which is most efficient? If a code won't compile or outputs a wrong answer, why is this happening? And like which has the best time and space complexity? And so when you're writing solutions, you want to take these into account. And so for this online learning system, I was implementing something that would show you a structural code comparison. So there was a solution, and then where the student or the person on the online learning system was to type in their solution to the code, it would compare the two structurally. So if the solution that we had, which was the most efficient and had the best time and space complexity, if the structure of the students did not match the structure of the actual solution, we wanted to tell them what it was missing or what it had too many of. And so this kind of helps with the overall guidance in coding problems and getting better at them. So for my solution, I worked in JavaScript to create this structural code comparison. So looking at the first one, we have a certain function, and basically we're getting some text from an interactive text area. And then we have 2 different hash maps. One that is looking at the terms for the solution, and then one that's looking at the terms for the student's solution. And just to make sure when I say solution, it's the actual correct code that's within the database. And so what I do is I input both of them as strings, and then go through it and check how many of the certain keywords there are and store them in a hash map. And then the thing is, there are multiple different functions that you can use to count a certain substring. So say like a for keyword in a certain string. The issue is that most of those don't look at the entire word, if that makes sense, because you could have for each and for both keywords. And so if you have for, it'll count the for and the for each keyword. And so you'll have that'll be messed up, and it won't necessarily just be for loops instead of for each. And so basically I go through and I implement my own finding of the count of each keyword. And this is specifically for the keywords of C#. And then basically if there's a keyword that there are too many of that specific keyword, or there are too few of that specific keyword, there will be an output of that and like a structural error notification where the interactive text area is. Here's the second part. This is more of grammatical stuff. Just making sure if you have one, then it's keyword, and if you have multiple, then it's keywords, just so it's grammatically correct on the output. And then also, after there is one structural notification, it lists, in one list, there are the keywords with too many occurrences, which then you have points deducted from your grade. And then if you have keywords with too few occurrences, even though that's weird wording, if you have keywords with less occurrences than that in the solution, then you're awarded points because you practically did it better, for lack of better terms, than the actual solution. And then I just output the text in a paragraph. And then if there are no errors, then it just says your code contains all of the correct structural elements. And then this is also just another function to count the keywords and to make sure that there's a space on each side of the keyword. So looking at the details of technology and architecture, the main, of course, is input and output. So what I use for this is a SQL database because we didn't want to hard code, or I didn't want to hard code the keywords and such for all the different languages. I worked with C#, Java, Python, and R, and I didn't want to hard code all of those into a list. So I put them into the SQL database and just got the certain list for the language that was being used on the left using the d.language.toString, and then I would parse it by commas in order to get out the keywords for that language. So the main technology and architecture is definitely in the input and output, and how to kind of clean up the code itself and store it into a database to retrieve information that can be in the database instead of being hard-coded. And then lessons that I learned. So the first one is definitely bad solutions lead to better solutions. Throughout the entire process of implementing the structural code comparison, my code developed, right? My first version was not as efficient as my last one, and it just got better and better every time, which I think is something that happens with almost everyone in a lot of different situations, and that can help us realize that our first version isn't going to be the best, and that we can keep building off of that first version. The second thing is there's never one distinct way to approach a problem and implement a solution. For my case, the structural code comparison, there were multiple different ways that I could have approached it. The way that I ended up implementing it is different than the way I thought I was going to implement it at the start. And so just realizing that there are multiple different ways can help you kind of put together different parts from the different ways that you're thinking about in order to make a more well-rounded code for the actual problem. And then the third one is, although it's cliche, sometimes it's better to, like, quote, sleep on it. There were a lot of times where I was kind of stuck on a certain part, and maybe I've been coding for an extended period of time before that, kind of sleeping on it and waking up in the morning, and most of the time it would help. It would kind of clear my brain and allow me to actually think about the problem and what the best way to approach it would be and implement a certain solution. So yeah, those are definitely the three main lessons I learned. And then for my further work, I'm currently working on an XML Tableau file comparison, so it's more than the structural code comparison. And so for this, I'm definitely going to use stacks and queues, because Tableau and HTML are going to be more difficult than just your regular like C#, C++, Java programs, because of the tags and everything and the closing and opening of them, and to make sure that nobody's missing some tag within another tag. And so within the next couple of days, I should have this implemented into the online learning system as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Hanna Hunde, and I was working with Aidan and my mentor Marcella for the summer at the Code Day internship. So we were working on the Let's Use Data online learning system. The problem I was looking at was the syntax highlighting for the code editor or for the code area on the website. So having a syntax highlighter makes a code more readable, easy to detect syntax error while coding, and we can easily detect the keywords, variables, and variable names and punctuations while coding. So for the solution, I created a program that takes an input from the user, and it takes an input from the user and it compares it with a keyword. Specifically for this case, we were working on the C# keywords. So once we compare those keywords, we will go ahead and highlight those specific keywords in the program. And yeah, that's what basically the program does. And basically was an input, process, and output architecture. And one of the lessons I learned during this internship was that communication is a key. So like knowing what is required from you and knowing every specification for your assignment and project is a key. And yeah, I learned that in this project. And the second thing is when you're stuck, ask for help. Don't rely on Google 100% of the time, because I was being stuck and trying to find answers on Google, and it took me a lot of time. And yeah, that's what I learned. So if you guys want to go ahead and connect with us, you can email us. Aidan's email is right here, and I have mine over here as well. And you can also connect with us on LinkedIn. And yeah, thank you for listening. And yeah.